All right, here we go. Friendly reminder, you do have a vocab quiz tomorrow on number 2 of your vocab. It says Unilever with like 10,000 other words in the box. All you need to know is Unilever. So the first one for tomorrow, I'm trying to help you. If you want to memorize the whole thing, do you? But Unilever for the first one is the only term you need to know. Is that fair? Okay, so that's for tomorrow. So for the term, you will get the points if you just write Unilever, which is the first, which most of the products you have at your house are actually Unilever. Do you want to see how many companies fall under it? Yeah, it is. Huh? Yeah, there's like a ton of things. Where is my presentation? There it is. Do you want to see? Because I was like blown away when I was doing this. These are all the companies they owned. So how many products do you own of theirs? Yeah, dude. Oh my god, I love Magnum ice creams. Those things are so good.
What is sun?
Sunlight?
Bottom right.
It could be in other countries there, Gadaki. It looks very like Spanish or something, or Latin American. Yes, they're on both sides. They're making money on both sides. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get going. If you'd like to join me, you're more than welcome to. Here we go. I will get there. Give me just a moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, you do have a vocab quiz tomorrow. Friendly reminder, we have a test on Wednesday, of course, and that will be totally normal. For week 14, we're in week 13 right now, you will not have a primary source. You'll have a map, and you'll have a focus. I am not going to be here on Friday of next week. We are not together on Thursday. There's no school Thursday, and Samantha Bennett will not be here Friday. If you come to school on Friday, your only assignment will be to work on your focus or complete your map. On Wednesday, when you pick up your map, there'll be a completed map for you to take a photo of, so you will have the map before you even go into the week. Sounds good? So I'm just letting you know. So you can make the decision if you're coming or not. Here we go. Bombay. Goya. Pondicherry. Bay of Bengal. This is your Arabian Sea. This is your Indian Ocean. This is your Himalayas. This is Calcutta. Over here is Tibet. Siam. I'll draw a line right there. This is French. Indo, China. Right here we have Hong Kong. This is Taiwan. Right here we have Shanghai. Over here we have Beijing. This is Korea. This is your Japanese empire. This is your Russian. Russian Empire. This is Manchuria. This is Siberia. All right. Down here, we're gonna finish drawing this in. This is Borneo. This is Sarawak. This is British New Borneo. Okay, this is your Philippines. Okay, of course, this is your Pacific Ocean. And then we're going to draw in, because I need you to know Papua New Guinea, even though it's not really right here, but that's okay. So this is New Guinea. And this is P-A-U-P-A-U-A, Papua New Guinea, Papa. And I do want you to write Australia. And we're going to point down because it's further down. This is your Dutch East Indies. All right, and you need 8 boxes. Russia, 8. Netherlands, Japan, British, French, US, German, and then you have your princely states of India. All right, we'll start with Russia. It's the easiest. Okay, so Russia for me is going to be brown, and it is the top of your map. Now, do not color in Korea. Don't color in the top of Korea. Don't color in Korea. All right. Now, the Russians, just like everyone else, is going to have a little piece of China as well. And this is going to become a huge point of contention. It's called spheres of influence, where they dominate them economically, which we'll get into much detail. Netherlands, for me, is going to be red. The Netherlands are going to, oh, I didn't label this one. This is Sumatra. If you order black coffee from Starbucks, it's probably a Sumatra blend, which comes from this island. Okay, Borneo is going to be controlled by the Dutch. The Dutch East Indies are obviously controlled by the Dutch. Look at you guys figuring it out. Okay, New Guinea is part of the Dutch East India Trade Company. Remember that existed? Yes. Still, this is the end of it. Oh, and the Dutch. No. Japan, for me, is going to be purple. Okay, obviously the Japanese Isles. Half of this landmass up here. And then Korea is controlled by the Japanese at this point. And Taiwan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why has Japan taken over Korea and Taiwan? Why are they spreading? They are what, Parker? They're imperializing because they have industrialized. All right. So, for me, the British are going to be a dark green. Actually, I'm going to do the princely state first because it'll be easier to color in your British. Okay, for me, the princely states is going to be orange. Do the best you can. It doesn't need to be perfect. All right, here we go. Okay, so these are princely states. What that means is these are controlled by Indian kingdoms. However, they are only allowed to exist because the British have allowed them. Do you think they have really any autonomy? No, but they allow them to have a little bit of power, and that's why they're called the princely state. So unfortunately, it's not because they are controlled by their own choices. It is, in fact, they're allowed to have power because the British are allowing them to have power. All right, so here are your British. As you can see, they're already starting to take over a ton of territory over here in India. India is going to be known as the crown jewel of all of British colonies because it has a ton of natural resources and a huge market, or lots of people to buy British goods. They are going to exploit the hell out of India. It is really only recently, in the last 30 years, that India has really started becoming a profitable nation because of all of the depravity that the British did to it. They really didn't want to give it up. Even after World War I, they really wanted to hold on to it. It is one of the last places they give up because of how much wealth it gives them. So keep that in mind. Now, the British are the most powerful country in the world because they're the first to industrialize. Because of that, they're going to take over huge amounts of territory, which is why you're going to see Hong Kong and Shanghai are both controlled by the British. Okay, going back into the islands, you're going to see Sarawak and the British New Borneo are going to belong to the British. Papua is going to belong to the British. They're going to do terrible things over there. And then Australia, I'm just going to color this corner green because Australia is obviously controlled by the British. Because what language do they speak in Australia? They speak English. But yes. Yes. Hello.
They have like a Australian accent, so I just think, well, I guess, oh yeah, I guess that makes
They're speaking English with an accent.
Yeah.
Okay, French is going to be blue. They are going to have Siam and French Indochina. And this island off the coast, I can't remember what it is. Okay. They're also going to have a big territory over here inside China in the spheres of influence. There you go. Germany, for me, is going to be pink. Oh, I forgot to do US. Germany, for me, is pink, and they're going to have a port over here, right here above Shanghai. And then the US, of course, is an imperialist nation. Don't you forget it. Okay, US is going to be yellow for me, and we control the Philippines. And there you go. All right, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Oh, sorry, the Germans also control over here, above Papa. They control that.
What else did Germans control? They had
Here, and then they have a little spot along Shanghai. All right. Oh, the British control inside this circle. My bad. All right. You have 1 minute to finish coloring your map because I want to make sure we have time for the back.
Where's you at?
U.S. is Philippines. So, this week we're going to be talking about the age of imperialism. We're going to kind of start this, the spheres of influence. All of a sudden, the Europeans are going to realize that, hey, paying for this stuff is kind of expensive. But if we steal the stuff, it's super affordable. So what do you think they're going to choose to do? I was just watching a Vox video during my lunch about all the stolen goods inside of the British Museum and how, like, the British Museum just kind of refuses to acknowledge it. Like, most of the pieces that you study in AP Art History, a good amount of them are in the British Museum, including the Benin bronzes. Have you guys studied that? Have you gone to Africa yet? Oh, that's why. So that is one of the most one of the more prized possessions the British Museum has, and it's stolen. You've done the Acropolis, of course. Okay. A lot of the pieces of the Acropolis are hanging out in the British Museum. Instead of, in the Acropolis Museum in Greece, which is a huge problem. So, anyway, super fascinating. All right, you got about 15 seconds, and we're going to flip it over. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about this week the rise of this idea of socialism and communism. Okay, so we are going to be looking at these through the perspective of Marx. There are other political theorists who have analyzed capitalism, socialism, communism, but we are going to look at them through the perspective of Karl Marx. So, at the very top, according to Karl Marx, capitalism comes first, then socialism, and it's going to be around for about 200 to 300 years. Then communism. Okay, so why am I having such a hard time? It's like so embarrassing. Why I suck at this so much. Okay, that's better. Okay, so Karl Marx is going to come up with the idea of that capitalism will eventually fall to socialism, which will eventually cause communism. And we'll talk about these points again of why each one as we go through each component. Keep in mind, we are looking at this through the academic perspective of Karl Marx, not necessarily the economic perspectives of other philosophers. All right, here we go. So, capitalism, we do need to know it is created by Adam Smith. What's the name of his book? Wealth of Nations. And what year is it written? It's a nice year. There you go. Okay, so a couple things you need to know about capitalism. One of his big philosophies is laissez-faire, which means let it be. And it is keep the government out of the economy. Okay? Now, you need to know it is based on the belief that the people will choose what is successful and not by what they purchase. So if you like an item, what do? Buy it. If you don't like an item, you don't. If you get enough people, that business goes under and a new business will replace it. Okay? So, markets being open to everyone. Parentheses, anyone can start a business, but there is no guarantees you'll be successful. Okay? You also need to know it is very popular in Western Europe and eventually spreads throughout the world. Okay, it's incredibly harsh. You either make it or you don't. People lose everything. Okay, now, this is important. You're going to put a star next to it, not just a dot. Eventually, it will evolve into government regulations. With some assistance and supports. Okay, so with government regulation, it is not nearly as completely devastating. For instance, what would be government support to help the capitalistic economy? Huh? Loans, to a degree, yeah, for sure. Wealth, the poverty system here in the United States, yes. How we have food services and stuff for children and stuff like that. All of that has come out of the creation of how harsh capitalism can be and the wealth disparity that arrives because of capitalism. Okay? All right. So, capitalism is what we live by here in the United States. So, examples of this is going to be U.S., England, France, Germany, and like the list kind of goes on and on and on of countries that are using capitalism today. Okay, like 94% of all countries in the world use a capitalistic economy, but they all have regulations. Pure capitalism does not exist, which was interesting to kind of teach during Trump's campaign run. He talked about bringing the United States to a pure capitalistic society when he was running for president. What has never existed in the history of the world? A pure capitalistic society. Now, in the beginning of the industrial age, it was pretty damn close, but it still wasn't pure. Does that make sense? And we can't go from where we are today to a pure. That would like unravel like the whole system. Does that make sense? Okay. So pure capitalism does not exist. Pure socialism doesn't exist, and communism has never existed. So keep that in mind. All right, here we go. Socialism. It is a term created by Karl Marx and Engels in the Communist Manifesto 1873. All right, so socialism, when the government controls all aspects of production. Parentheses. Land, natural resources, and factories. They, when I say they, who am I referring to? The government. They will divide up the profits to the people. So, the government controls all aspects of industrialization and all the components. They make the money and then divide it out amongst the people. It is important for you to know the government controls all aspects of life to ensure equal distribution. Okay, now, Marx believed that factories would be overthrown by the factory workers, and the workers would create a socialist society. Okay. Okay, you're going to write below it, never happened. And we're going to talk about why it never happened, but it never happened. Okay, as in the factory workers overthrow the factories, that never happened. Okay, so next thing you do need to know, socialism has been implemented. Implemented in Soviet Russia, North Korea, and China. Parentheses, it's a hybrid in 2021. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please listen very carefully. Okay, and we're going to put 3 stars next to it because this is our 3rd star item. It's never a pure socialist economy. There's never been a pure socialist economy. Okay, so let me explain something. So Karl Marx is living during the beginning of the age of the Industrial Revolution. He's living in what would we consider the worst time to be a part of it, where there's practically no government regulations, and the workers' lives, people are working like 16-hour days. There's no regulations. You're working 6 days a week because, of course, Sunday you'd have off, but that was it. Children are working in factories. It's dirty. It's disgusting. People are living in tenements. Anyway, so living in a society like that, it makes sense to think that the workers would overthrow the factory owners, correct? Because conditions were so atrocious, and they were. Okay, so Karl Marx believed that the people would overthrow the proletariat, us, the regular people, would overthrow the bourgeoisie, or the wealthy factory owners. Okay, yes, that's where you get your term bougie, okay, from the bourgeoisie. He thought they were going to overthrow, when the workers took over power, that they would equally distribute the wealth amongst themselves. And after 200 to 300 years of giving the money equally, the government would fade away. Now, Socialism in this way has never been done. Why? Because in the capitalist societies, England, US, France, Germany, they started doing their own reforms, like 40-hour work weeks, 8-hour days, no more child labor. Karl Marx did not predict that. He thought the governments would allow this whole pure capitalist thing to continue, which is why socialism did not form in its natural way. Okay, so when we're talking about Soviet Russia is not a pure socialist state. Now, do they call themselves socialists or do they call themselves communists? They call themselves communists because no one wants to think that they live in a whole society completely controlled by the government. Doesn't it sound nicer to be controlled by a society controlled by the people and not the government? Isn't that an easier pill to swallow? Which is why people who are who say they're communists but are actually socialists would rather use communists than socialists, which we'll talk about in a second. So let's talk about communism. It is termed created by Karl Marx and Engels in the Communist Manifesto. That's their book, in case you haven't figured it out. Okay. There is no government. And people equally distribute profits, materials, and food without being told to. This has never happened. Pure communism has never been seen. Because keep in mind, pure communism means there's no government. Where on the earth is there no government form? Okay, communism, according to Marx, was supposed to naturally evolve from socialism. That humans will become less selfish, and more concerned about the equality of all people. Of all, not the one, not of the one. Okay, so capitalism is very rough and aggressive. Okay, Marx thought, because of how cutthroat it was, that the factory workers would overthrow the factory owners and create a new economy called socialism, where they all equally share in the piece. They take the factory's profits and they divide it nicely amongst themselves. That, after 200 or 300 years, will eventually devolve into communism, where there is no government, where everyone just equally works together and no one has to tell people what to do. Do you think we'll ever get there? I don't think so either. Can we agree it's a lovely dream? I just don't think it's very practical, because I think humans are flawed and we're competitive. Oh, you have that pretty rock? I want the pretty rock. I think if it's not one thing, it'll be another thing. Okay, so I don't think communism can exist, but I do see the beauty of it. I don't think it'll ever happen. Socialism, though. When people talk about how healthcare for all is socialism, is it pure socialism? No. It's not. So, and then capitalism, of course, capitalism is wonderful in some ways and absolutely brutal in others. Can we agree? And does anywhere in the world have pure capitalism? No, because in every country there's reforms and limitations to it in order to make it better for people, because a pure capitalist society would be horrific, because the wealthy would be gorging themselves and the poor would be eating the trash. How much time do I have?
Less than a minute.
Are you submitting on Canvas? You should be. See ya. Always a